I still want to be close to him." His eyes glistened at this admission. I nodded my head, feeling the integrity of his response. "Rick, what if the very longing you feel is an indication of the Spirit at work, awakening you more fully to God?" Rick's countenance lightened a bit. He confessed that it was something he'd never considered. "If that were true, Rick, what might that reveal about how God is being toward you right now?" Again, he took his time to answer, and then he said, "It feels a little frustrating. I wish he would just show up and speak clearly, or do something for me, rather than just make me feel so desperate for him." "Yes, that's understandable," I responded. "Why might God want you to feel so desperate for him? Is there anything in your desperation that might be important to experience?" This time there was no pause. He blurted out with more conviction, "I think my desperation for God is making me seek him more than ever, more than anything. I think that's probably a good thing, right?" He grinned. "What do you think? Is it good?" He exhaled a reply. "Yes, it's good. I guess it even feels good to want to be closer to God in a way that I haven't for a long time." This conversation, though specific to Rick and his life situation, had a familiar ring to it. Not only did it remind us of the many stories we've heard in hundreds of hours spent in holy listening, it also resonated with our own lives and experience of God. We are two people who know what it is like to feel disillusioned, to struggle because the Christian life we're experiencing doesn't match what we had pictured life to be as a follower of Jesus. Eyes to see. We've written this book out of the harvest of more than 4 decades of following Christ and a decade's time of offering spiritual direction. We hope you will benefit from the generous framework we offer, one large enough to hold the things that are perplexing, disturbing, and incongruent with reason and rationality. In short, rather than trying to fit God and life into a system of beliefs, this book suggests that we can find God by paying attention to our own lived experience, that we can, as St. Ignatius said, find God in all things. Not that God causes all things, but we can discover God present and available to us in the midst of all. To do so, what we need most are eyes to see God. At first, that statement sounds as though some of us have it and others don't, as if some willfully choose blindness over sight. But our observations suggest that most people truly want to know whether God is present and active in their lives, so the lack of seeing is not out of stubborn refusal, but rather out of simply not knowing what to look for, or not recognizing unfamiliar expressions of the presence and action of God, like desire and desperation, as Rick discovered. The intent of this book is to help you gain assurance that God is with you and is actively involved in your life and world by growing 3 capacities: your capacity to recognize God, reflect on your experience, and respond faithfully to God's presence and involvement in your life. Here's a brief description of what we mean. Recognize. There are 2 things that must be true for you to recognize God. God must want to be experienced, and you must be looking for God. For the divine to be experienced, your encounter will invariably be mediated. In other words, God will come to you through something else: a burning bush in nature, an inner quiet prompting, a dream or vision, an evocative gospel story, a recurring theme, or through some much-needed provision. The medium is not always tangible, but it is sensory.